Buckle up because we're diving into the messiest royal birth scandal that refuses to go away. Prince Archie's arrival wasn't just chaotic. It was a masterclass in how to torpedo your own credibility. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry managed to weaponize what should have been joyful baby news. They turned a royal birth into pure confusion, lies, and allegedly the kind of cover-up that would make Olivia Pope sweat. The deeper you dig, the wilder this gets. Here's where it gets unhinged. I saw those Getty images of the pillow dropping behind Meghan's skirt and initially thought they could be doctored. But Getty doesn't play games with fake content. They're bulletproof, reliable. The official story? Textbook simple. Meghan allegedly went into labor early morning, gave birth, palace makes announcement. Basic royal protocol, right? Wrong. That sanitized version is what they spoon-fed us while the real timeline was falling apart behind the scenes. Let's talk timing because this is where things get sus. Meghan supposedly started labor in the early hours, yet the palace stayed silent for almost 12 hours. 12 hours. Why the radio silence when every other royal birth gets announced immediately? Plot twist. By the time they finally made the announcement, Archie was already born. Now you might think they wanted privacy, no big deal. But here's the tea. Harry and Meghan's PR team had literally promised to alert the press when labor started. That was their own commitment, their own words. Then suddenly, crickets, complete blackout. When reporters started asking questions, the palace dropped some carefully crafted statement that dodged everything and blamed the media for misinterpreting their timing. Classic deflection energy. It's giving corporate damage control. But wait, it gets messier. During that tiny window between the palace saying Meghan was in labor and the Instagram post announcing the birth, journalists asked point blank, "Has the baby already been born?" Palace officials straight up denied it. That's not miscommunication, that's dead-ass lying. Look, people can debate surrogate theories and moon bump speculation all day. That's tabloid catnip. But those juicy details aren't even the main issue. The real problem? Harry and Meghan lied. The palace lied for them. And if there's one thing the monarchy cannot afford to do, it's lie about succession basics. One person who's been calling out this mess since day one is Dan Wootton. Back in 2019, he was executive editor at The Sun, and probably the first mainstream journalist brave enough to say, "This doesn't add up." He actually got Buckingham Palace to answer 8 direct questions on record about Archie's birth. Almost unheard of. That alone should tell you how rattled they were. The palace knew something looked sketchy. Dan's main theory? The announcement was deliberately delayed to sync with US morning news shows. He pointed out how everything lined up perfectly with 8 a.m. New York broadcasts like CBS This Morning, where Gayle King just happens to be Meghan's friend. The palace denied it, obviously, but when every move benefits the Sussex American PR game, you start connecting dots. This isn't about attacking Meghan for sport. It's about transparency. If you're taxpayer-funded royals with a baby in the line of succession, you don't get to cherry-pick privacy when it's convenient. You can't play the "we want privacy" card while staging photo ops and releasing curated documentaries. This wasn't just bad PR, it was a total media implosion. If protecting privacy was the goal, it backfired spectacularly. Now nobody trusts their story. Not the timeline, not the announcements, not even the baby bump itself. Once you lose public trust as a royal, it's game over. No takebacks. Meghan's bump became its own storyline, and the internet noticed everything. One day it looked massive, the next day almost flat. Videos started circulating where her stomach seemed to fold as she sat down, sparking wild moon bump theories. Instead of clearing things up, Harry and Meghan doubled down on secrecy. That silence poured gasoline on the fire. People weren't just speculating anymore. They were becoming convinced something was being hidden. Mainstream media didn't want to touch it. Too controversial, too close to conspiracy territory. But that's where journalism failed its job. The job isn't protecting people from uncomfortable questions. It's asking them. Meghan's pregnancy had questions stacked sky high, yet big outlets stayed far away. Only journalists like Dan Wootton were willing to press the palace, and when they did, the answers were robotic, generic, and always dodged the core issue. Why the lies? One moment that made everyone do a double take. There was allegedly a video of Meghan twerking, dancing, looking completely relaxed around the same time she was supposedly in labor with baby Leet. The timeline made zero sense. It made even people who never questioned the first pregnancy start asking, hold on, what's actually happening here? Camilla Tominey, respected associate editor at the Daily Telegraph, wrote about the inconsistencies but never once considered the bump might be fake. When challenged, she responded like even raising the question was beneath her dignity. That's the problem right there. Journalists pretending they're too respectable to explore legitimate red flags. If the palace had just stuck to tradition and told the truth, or even half the truth, none of this would have spiraled. But once you start lying, every new move looks suspicious. And wait till you hear how they handled the communication strategy next. The palace's handling of Harry and Meghan's messaging was pure chaos. Announcements got delayed, emails allegedly went unsent, timelines didn't match. At one point, the palace actually blamed a technical issue for not alerting the press on time. In 2019, as if phones don't exist. It wasn't just a misstep, it looked like amateur hour cover-up attempts. Buckingham Palace, the symbol of order and protocol, suddenly looked disorganized and weak. Not a good look when you're supposed to represent centuries of tradition. Then there's the Instagram post. That's how the world officially found out about Archie's birth. Not a formal royal statement, not a traditional press conference, just a social media post. During that brief window when journalists asked if Meghan had given birth, the palace said no, knowing full well the baby was already born. That crosses every line because it's not spin, it's just flat-out lying. Harry and Meghan's team tried framing everything around privacy, but when your child is in line for the throne, privacy stops being just personal preference. It becomes public trust territory. You're not just a couple anymore, you're an institution. You don't get to rewrite royal tradition because you feel like it. Every time they tried, it exploded worse. They dragged the palace down with them. Buckingham Palace looked like it was following their chaotic lead instead of setting the tone, and lost credibility in the process. The whole situation left royal watchers confused, journalists frustrated, and the public suspicious. This wasn't just a media strategy gone wrong. It became a symbol of how fractured things had gotten between Harry, Meghan, and the crown. It's giving family dysfunction on a global stage. What's so maddening is this could have been a celebration moment. Unity, even modernity. Instead, it became a masterclass in how not to handle royal communication. The questions didn't stop after Archie's birth. They kept multiplying like a hydra. One major question centered on the photo call at Windsor Castle. Harry and Meghan introduced their baby in a controlled, carefully staged moment with no outside press, zero real spontaneity. It was scheduled for 12:40 p.m. UK time, which just happens to perfectly match 7:40 a.m. American morning show broadcasts. People noticed. Was that coincidence, or were the Sussexes more focused on their US media presence than their British royal duties? Dan Wooten went straight at this question, asking the palace directly. Was the photo call timed to sync with American news shows? The answer was cold and scripted. No, the time was chosen based on the family's visit to Windsor to introduce Archie to the Queen and Prince Philip. But even that explanation didn't line up. Why would a royal photo op, one of the most anticipated public moments, get slotted around a private family visit? It felt backwards, like someone was working from a US media schedule and pretending it was just royal logistics. Another mystery that had people side-eyeing everything. Where was Archie actually born? Harry spoke about the experience in glowing, emotional detail, talking about how amazing Meghan was during labor, yet the palace refused to confirm the birth location. That alone stirred serious speculation. Every royal baby before him had their birthplace confirmed as standard protocol. So why hide this detail if it was just a normal hospital birth? What was there to cover up? The refusal to answer made people more curious, not less. Then there's the line of succession angle. As Prince Harry's son, Archie is direct royal descendant. That means legal documentation, proper announcement procedures, and formal palace acknowledgement are absolutely critical. But with this birth, the usual sign-offs were either late, vague, or completely missing. Royal birth announcements typically include details like attending physician, hospital location, and a formal statement outside the palace. None of that happened. Instead, we got a delayed press release and a filtered Instagram message. FR, that's not how succession works. To make things more confusing, the palace initially tried acting like nothing was unusual. but contradictions kept piling up. One outlet was told Meghan went into labor, another was told she'd already given birth. When reporters pressed for clarity, palace press officers got cagey. At one point, they claimed the announcement was delayed due to an email failure. That's their excuse? In a palace filled with staff, advisors, and PR professionals, they claimed an email didn't go out in time. If this happened once, people might have let it slide. But the whole thing was tangled in inconsistency after inconsistency. Meghan and Harry wanted to modernize the monarchy, but ended up introducing pure chaos instead. They didn't seem to understand, or maybe didn't care, that when you wear the crown's weight, you don't get to control the narrative completely. When you try, the backlash can be brutal. Their actions didn't just raise eyebrows, they created a trust vacuum. And in that vacuum, theories exploded everywhere. Some claimed Meghan used a surrogate, others believed she wore a fake bump. More extreme takes said Archie was a borrowed baby or didn't even exist. These theories didn't materialize from thin air. They were born from the couple's refusal to communicate clearly and the palace's unwillingness to demand transparency. This was never about hate. It was about truth. And the truth, still missing. But here's what we do know beyond all the speculation. Meghan and Harry lied. The palace backed them up, and the public was left with a royal mystery that still hasn't been solved. The whole Archie birth saga exposed how quickly royal credibility can crumble when you prioritize image control over honesty. It's giving Fire Festival energy, oversold, underdelivered, with receipts that don't add up. What started as a simple baby announcement became a case study in how secrecy breeds suspicion. Every non-answer generated 10 new questions. Every deflection looked more guilty. Every technical error excuse sounded more ridiculous. The saddest part? This could have been avoided entirely with basic transparency. Royal births have protocols for a reason. They work. But when you decide traditional methods aren't Instagram-worthy enough, you get this mess. Harry and Meghan thought they could have it both ways. Royal privileges without royal accountability. Privacy when convenient, publicity when profitable. The Archie birth proved that strategy doesn't work. It just makes everyone lose trust in everything you say. No cap, this whole situation reads like a cautionary tale about what happens when image management goes completely off the rails. Instead of protecting their family, they created more scrutiny. Instead of modernizing traditions, they made people miss the old reliable systems. The palace, for its part, looked weak throughout the entire circus. They enabled the chaos instead of shutting it down. When your job is maintaining institutional credibility, and you let two people torpedo it for their personal brand, you failed the basic assignment. Years later, people still dissect every detail of Archie's birth story, because none of it made sense at the time, and even less sense now. The lies were too obvious, the timeline too messy, the explanations too convenient. That's the real legacy of this royal birth drama. Not celebrating new life, but questioning everything that came after. When the monarchy's whole foundation is built on tradition and trust, and you damage both simultaneously, the consequences echo for years. The Archie birth scandal became the moment when Harry and Meghan's credibility officially jumped the shark, and they've been trying to recover ever since. But once the public decides you're lying about the basics, everything else becomes suspect too. Bottom line, this wasn't just about one baby's birth announcement. It was about whether the royal family could maintain public trust while accommodating two people who seemed determined to rewrite every rule. Spoiler alert, they couldn't, and we're still dealing with the fallout.